Ladies and gentlemen, the Powerful Nerdcast has officially returned. Dread it, run from it, destiny still arrives. Guys, we have a really great show for you today. We are going to talk about the biggest movie in MCU history, Avengers Infinity War. And today, we have a lot of people here to talk about it. First, let's bring it over to my man, Christian.
Yo, Corey, it has been a long time coming, but I'm glad we're keeping the podcast going. And to bring it back on Infinity Wars is epic because this movie encapsulates like at least 10 years of Marvel history. So I'm kind of happy that we're all getting to see it come together. And man, it was a wild ride. I really enjoyed the film. I thought that they had like 3 different story arcs going on the whole time, and they were all really interesting the whole time. And the way the movie ends, I'm sure we're going to get to that. By the way, this is totally a spoilerific podcast, so do not expect to be saved. You know, destiny will come at the end of this podcast for sure. And we also have a guest, Jordan, here, and he is going to join in and discuss things with us.
Hey, what's up, Internet? My name's Jay Stock. Yeah, Avengers. It was just groundbreaking, absolutely blew my mind in every regard. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, turn this off now. Like Christian said, spoilers. Lots and lots of spoilers are coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be a great time.
All right, so before we get into the nitty-gritty and talk about every single character from this movie, and there were a lot of characters, we're just going to sort of give our general thoughts about the movie, what we liked, what we didn't like. Jordan, since you're a guest on the show today, we're going to go ahead and start with you. You're on the floor.
All right, so this entirely lived up to my expectations. It blew my mind from the get-go. 10 years of sitting back waiting for this, or actually, ever since the first Avengers, really, when we saw that post-credit scene, and just taking it all the way from where they began and how much more they have implemented into this entire universe. It has grown to such massive proportions, and it just rocked my world, and I of course, I had the premium seating right up front, all of that, and, my movie experience was set. I do think there were a few elements that they left out, or like things that I guess I overhyped in my head, certain expectations I set for myself. But even with that in mind, this movie still blew me away, At no point was I legitimately disappointed. I think it's just top notch, man.
Yeah, it was really, really good. I thought the way they wove all the stories together till now is obviously something they've never done yet in like cinematic history, taken this long with this many movies and brought it all together. So it was pretty amazing that they actually pulled it off, and to see like Doctor Strange and Iron Man interacting was really interesting to me. Like, I felt that was to be one of the most interesting character interactions, while Star-Lord just sort of bumbled his way into the other universes and just hung out, and everyone's like, bro, what are you doing here? He's like, we're just passing through, like he wasn't even like all that interested in anything happening. And also I found it very interesting that they are sort of playing off Hulk not wanting to come around anymore, probably because he got his like ass kicked from Thanos. He's being like a little bitch, like he's scared to come back, or something. And so it's sort of interesting seeing Bruce Banner actually get his own sort of time to shine and just decide to kick the enemy's ass himself and not feel like a victim, because he's not Hulk. And so that was really cool to me, actually. And man, Black Panther didn't like do shit in this movie except sort of like have a place with a shield, that like warped down and stopped the bad guys from entering and made a big place for them to have a battle. Because I felt like the whole world hyped Black Panther, and then all of a sudden in this movie he didn't get to do much, except some of the things that happened at the end. And but that was like one of my biggest complaints, is that Black Panther didn't actually get to do anything besides like have 1 or 2 cool scenes where he jumps towards bad guys and slices them with his claw fingers, and that's about it. And what else? I thought the Vision storyline was sort of weak, but I never care about romances. So, him and Scarlet Witch like being like, well, the world's going to end. You might have to kill me. Those other characters that are talking about having to kill each other if they have stones taken, we're like them, but over here too, and so it's like I didn't really care about that part, because I was like, the romance, I'm like, does he have a red dick? That's what I'm thinking, like that's what's going on in my head. So it just in general, that was sort of weak for me too. And I was sort of mad Vision didn't do anything, but mostly because he got stabbed so early in the movie. He was sort of like one of the Titans that got weakened in the beginning of the movie.
Didn't he get stabbed twice?
Yeah, he got stabbed a lot. Killed by Thanos because his head jewel got ripped out. And sorry, spoilers.
He also died twice.
And he died, yeah. And then he came back and then got his head wound. Yeah, so anyway, it's just I thought that was sort of a weak storyline. But when Captain America got involved, that shit got good again. Most of the time when Captain America shows up, it gets good. And but overall, I thought it was an amazing movie, and I'd easily say it's 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. And it makes me excited because I feel like the second film is going to bring it all together. And even though I feel like it'll end up okay, at the end of the day. Because they're going to make more Guardians films, they're going to make more Black Panther movies, and they're going to, money has given away the ending to this film because they're going to make those other movies. But I found that it was a great experience, and I feel like the second movie is actually what's going to bring it all together and either make this like the Titan ending to the Marvel Cinematic Universe before they start their larger Chapter 2, or like the biggest costly false execution ever. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I mean, we're kind of hanging in limbo with that too. Rumors of what Avengers 4 is turning out to be is definitely kind of like, you might be walking the line there a little bit, Marvel, but we'll dive into that a little bit more, Corey, what about you, man?
For me, this was a fantastic film. It's not Shakespeare, it's not a Coen Brothers movie, it's a comic book film. And surprisingly for me, unlike a lot of the other Marvel ensemble films, this is the one that to me felt like I was reading a comic book while I was watching it. It really carried a lot of those elements, mostly in the first half of the film, because there's this huge threat that was going down in New York. And every hero came to assemble. You had Iron Man, you had Doctor Strange, the scene with Spider-Man getting off the bus and swinging through the city towards all of the chaos. It felt like something that was going on in like a big comic book, and I really loved all of that. Really, though, it lived up to my expectations. I was actually ready to walk out of that theater being completely disappointed by what I was going to see, because I just got done reading the Infinity Gauntlet trade paperback comic book, and I loved it. The artwork was awesome, the story was really engrossing, and there were some elements to it that were so overblown and ridiculous that I felt that the movie would in no way live up to any of the hype, in particular what Thanos actually does with the Infinity Gauntlet. But I can't believe I'm saying this, but some of the stuff they made him do with that gauntlet in the fight with the Avengers on Planet Titan was better than some of the stuff that I saw in the comic. It just looked fantastic. What I love, too, is that they really upped the ante with Thanos. Without a doubt, he is the most threatening and coolest Marvel villain I've seen on film. Mostly for how incredibly destructive he is. I mean, that scene where he crushes the moon and just, like, rains hell down on everyone, that scene to me was like just a thing of glory. His battle with Doctor Strange, one of the coolest fights in all of MCU history. And, I'm a big anime fan. That scene where Doctor Strange fired like that like broken glass wall towards him that he just shattered, absorbed, and reshot back at him, I felt like I was watching Dragon Ball Z during that moment. And I was just like, yeah, they're getting it. They're really making it work here. And everything just worked in this film. It wasn't as funny as some of the previous installments, which I was kind of disappointed in because I've gotten so used to these movies being like 50% action, 50% comedy. But it's important for this movie. They really had to establish that Thanos truly is a threat. He's very destructive, and not only was he just threatening, he won. This movie ends with everyone losing and a lot of the heroes, I'd say about half of them, straight up dying.
Oh, yeah,
well, he wants to erase half the universe, so half of them disappearing is sort of like the whole point of them losing as well. 50% of the people, are gone. One of the things that I really found interesting is that Thanos is actually relatable, and I think this is a new wave of like villains that are relatable. It's like after Killmonger, and I'm sure we've seen it in the past. Red Skull, I really felt with him because he was a Nazi. No, I'm kidding. Fuck. Anyway, I'm kidding. The whole point is the point is they're making villains that are relatable, so they're not just evil guy trying to go for his goal and good guys trying to stop him. And Thanos is actually pretty interesting. Like, he feels the loss of the idea of sacrificing. Obviously he's wrong, but he understands when he killed like Gamora and stuff to get the Soul Stone and things like that. It's sort of like he is embracing the sacrifice himself, so therefore he's not above the sacrifice. He's actually wanting to join in it. And obviously he's created genocide multiple times on multiple worlds, but like him killing Gamora was sort of like the metaphor for him having to do his own sacrifice, to do it.
And I mean, I'm kind of stuck between this, like, there's this big statement going around right now about how Killmonger was right. Well, I feel like Thanos was kind of right, and that was a big part of the conflict here, because like his reasoning behind doing his actions was completely sound. You can't feed half the universe. Well, what's the best way to take care of the other half? Limit it, But at the same point, like, I think that was part of the element that allowed us to dive further into who Thanos was. We were able to see him as not just an evil bad guy. He was a character who had reasoning behind his actions, And that's, like you said, when he lost Gamora, when he had to sacrifice her, how you actually saw emotion from this guy, not just cold-hearted, fuck you, girl, just throws her off a cliff, Yeah.
It
showed complexity to him.
I mean, he even said that when he killed his Vision. or when they were killing Vision off, he's like, "Oh, I've already sacrificed 2 today. Don't worry about that."
What I really loved about it, too, is even though they didn't adapt all of the elements from the comics, they did make Thanos, as you said, relatable and understandable. In the comics, his entire motivation for wanting to destroy half of the universe is because he's in love with the physical manifestation of death, who is called Mistress Death. She's basically the Grim Reaper with boobies. And in this movie, things have kind of changed. There is no Mistress Death. He's just doing it for the sake of balance. But what I like is, in the comics, he has this really strong emotional attachment to Mistress Death, and he actually does show said emotions. He can cry. He can get angry. He's not just the typical, I'm evil for the sake of being evil. And like you were saying, Christian, they managed to sort of tap into that with that scene with Gamora.
Yeah.
When he threw her over the cliff in order to get the Soul Stone, he started crying. He
Yep.
showed real emotion. He showed something that I haven't seen from any other Marvel villain, except maybe Killmonger. Basically, Thanos to me is Killmonger on a cosmic scale.
Yeah.
That's basically the way that I see it. Their motivations are strikingly similar. The only difference is Thanos has the power to fulfill his plan. What did you guys think about his lackeys, his personal Ginyu Force, otherwise known as the Black Order?
Ooh, Ebony Maw was the one I was most excited for, and I was kind of disappointed in Maw with the way he died out so quick too. Like first one to get killed off. His whole presence wasn't as menacing and cynical as I would have thought somebody like Maw would have been. If anything, I felt like Corvus Glaive was kind of more of the intimidating member of the Black Order. Yet we got the least screen time with him.
Yeah, like he was the most powerful, but yet we never really saw him say anything except almost get killed by Captain America.
Yeah, it's like we didn't hear a single thing about his badass staff, Like,
yeah.
The capabilities of that thing weren't even referenced, really. So.
Nope, they didn't even bring it up.
No.
The only one that gave screen time to was Squidward, and then they killed him off.
Yeah, and they didn't even refer to their names in the film either. They only called Ebony Maw one time when Thanos referred to him on Titan. Is Maw dead?
Yeah.
And it's really a shame that they didn't say these guys' names out loud because they're all awesome.
Yeah, like
Ebony
Cole
Maw,
Obsidian,
Proxima Midnight,
right?
Like these names are really cool sounding, and really they could have built upon them so much more. It really, I kind of wish that the Black Order survived the film to fight in the next one. Mm-hmm. They could have gotten maybe a little bit more into their past, but ultimately they just end up becoming the Goombas to Thanos' Bowser, which is kind of disappointing. That being said, I think Ebony Maw left the most impact, but only because he had the most dialogue.
Yeah.
And I loved the use of his powers. I mean, he's another telepath, but his battle against Iron Man at the beginning and all of them, that was just really well done. I really loved that.
Mm-hmm. How he, flips him upside down, flips Doctor Strange upside down, pins him to the wall, wraps him with bricks. Like, yeah. Ebony Maw is definitely a violent kind of dude, but in such a cynical way. Like, watching him just play out is always just fun on its own sense, And
he was a great foil for Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange needed an opponent in this film that was going to match his mystical arts, and Ebony Maw was the perfect choice for that.
And sometimes I think Ebony Maw even outdid Doctor Strange, because Ebony Maw seems like he can just manipulate whatever he wants,
Yeah, and the other thing is I found that Squidward, as I will call him, just so I don't fuck up his name.
Get lost, Squidward.
Get lost. I felt that he actually was probably one of the more powerful ones because of his psychic abilities. Like, he could essentially stop anything or move almost anything, probably within a reasonable size. And Doctor Strange sort of struck me as more of like a glass cannon of a character, because he's not actually super strong physically, or if he got a rocket to the chest, he would die.
Yeah,
he is a normal dude that's really good at casting spells and has a real big understanding of that. And so I've sort of found it interesting that Doctor Strange, if you get him, he's pretty done.
Yeah. When he was caught by Ebony Maw and he was being put through all that torture. Christian, I know that you read and watch Naruto. Did that remind you of seeing a genjutsu kind of?
It was kind of genjutsu, and I found the Ebony Maw reminds me of the bad guy from One Punch Man, the squid with the psychic powers.
Yeah, I could see that.
Anybody, because I'm not sure.
I'm talking about season 1. He was in control of the command center of the final villain of One Punch Man season 1.
Now I remember what you're talking about. Yeah, he does kind of. Yeah,
he's sort of that. I mean, the psychic evil dude that sort of looks like a squid has been out there before.
Yeah,
the psychic power guy, that's real thin because he doesn't need his physical body, but he has the mantis. Who else's psychic abilities that kind of falls into that? Mantis from Metal Gear Solid. Psycho Mantis.
Psycho Mantis.
Yeah.
And like 10 other characters.
And 10 other
insane.
characters.
I'd say Professor X is pretty thin, but then again, he ain't got no legs, Lieutenant Dan.
He ain't got no legs.
Magic legs. Cole Obsidian, who's basically kind of like the Hulk of the group. Not really much to the character, but I do think he had the coolest death out of all of them when he was fighting against Bruce Banner, who was in the Hulkbuster armor.
Mm-hmm.
When he took the arm that had the rocket on it, attached it to him, and he ended up flying into the massive shield that's over Wakanda, and it dragged his entire body across until he just exploded in midair. I thought that was really sad.
He sort of got killed like on that episode of Rick and Morty when they were on that roller coaster ride. And
the death zone.
The death zone.
Yeah. It was kind of similar to that, but yeah, I really think it's Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive should have been like the ones you remembered the most, and basically they were just a couple of people who wore all black and had staffs.
Yeah,
that's about it.
I feel like it was Ebony Maw, and then Proxima Midnight, then Corvus Glaive, then Cole Obsidian in ranks of importance and screen time, you know. And I definitely feel like that should have been altered up a little bit.
It's a shame too, because Corvus is like Thanos' like #1 guy. He's the guy right below him, so he just seemed like they just didn't really seem like they cared that much about them in this movie.
I think they were just the fodder to get to the fight to Thanos. You know,
which wasn't even a fight; it was a slaughter.
Yeah, I mean, he just showed up in like the last 10 minutes. You know, big drum beats going all nice and slow, big badass slow walk. You know, and then just murder. Every single person.
He just kills people. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And also, but to me, personally, I think one of the most exciting fights is the Titan fight, like hands down. The Titan fight to me is you got a good mix of characters, and all they do is fight Thanos. That's all they have to do is just Thanos. You know, no giant armies too. Like the Wakanda battle is just an excuse for a fight scene.
Yeah, and it kind of felt like we've been here before because we've seen the Chitauri from the Avengers, we've seen the Ultron army from Age of Ultron, and now we have a bunch of weird creatures which are all like four-armed looking venom things.
Yeah, I thought they were like, is this like some kind of Venom twist right now?
Yeah, they are actually things that exist in the comic, and I think they
are they not just a Chitauri, just a different version, like a different race?
I was just looking this up the other day. I'm gonna see if I can try and find a picture of them, but they're basically just the stand-in for this movie. A lot of people need to get killed, and we need a lot of action. We need our nameless army. But,
yeah, because I did notice that, kind of...
They're the orc army?
Yeah, coming back to the end, we see this end scene, of course, everyone's fading away, if you know the ending here, and...
All right, here they are. The picture on the screen we have here, they're called the Outriders in the comics.
Outriders.
And they look pretty close, actually.
They look like Evangelion monsters.
A little bit, yeah. Like, they're very streamlined, but, they have the four arms and everything. They look super, super vicious. Yeah, I did like them, but, I mean, again, they're just people need asses to be kicked, so we needed them.
Yeah.
I did think it was really cool though how they sacrificed themselves. They won. They tried to win by numbers by just slamming through the force field.
They were just getting cut in half by the shield and everything.
And then eventually some would make it through and everything, which I thought was great. And then they had to make the big sacrifice by closing the shield, and that's when all hell broke loose. And that's when we finally got a lot of witty banter, which I loved. Which, like I said, there wasn't a lot of jokes in this movie, but I liked when Groot met Captain America for the very first time. And of course, all Groot can say is "I'm Groot."
I am Steve Rogers.
Exactly. I thought that was really good because you got to realize, Captain America is just—he's been through a lot of shit for starting out in the '40s, and now he's talking to alien trees and shit. That's really weird, man.
Yeah, he is not prepared for this. It's different.
I love the whole Rocket and White Wolf thing now, though. When Rocket's sitting there with Bucky and he's like, hey, how much for the gun? How much for the arm? I'm going to get that arm.
Yeah. Yeah, the Rocket stuff was pretty good. Rocket is slowly taking over that whole series, if you ask me. Rocket, Thor, and Groot, their whole thing was, by far the most, mystical sort of journey, if you'd say Lord of the Rings but in space.
Yeah.
Their whole journey was way more interesting to me than some of the others because it plays on a lot of different levels and a lot of different sci-fi that you don't actually see in the other stories.
Peter Dinklage
is giant Peter Dinklage.
It's the biggest character he's ever going to play.
Oh, God. I'm trying not to do the height jokes.
It's so hard to not want to make a joke about Peter Dinklage, but I didn't know he was going to be in this movie.
No, and I mean, just I
knew
respect
his
the guy
voice
as an
was
actor.
going to be in it. We thought he was going to play one of the Dark Order guys.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be Cole Obsidian. That was the rumor.
Yeah, but he's just Peter Dinklage with a giant beard.
It's like, that's what killing yourself is.
Yeah. Would you say because he was in space, he was wearing space pants, Corey?
Oh, shit. Space pants! But no, I loved his story arc, too. I love that Thor got a brand new weapon, which is arguably cooler than Mjolnir. It's a Stormbreaker. It's an axe and a hammer.
Yeah, it's both.
Yes, and it was forged not only from Peter Dinklage, but also from the arm of Groot.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really freaking cool. I don't know what it was about that scene, but man, they should have just made this a Thor movie.
Yeah, that whole Nevelanir, I think is what it's called, the forge that they go to, that whole series of scenes was, in my opinion, like one of the most beautiful, epic parts of the film. You know, just seeing that shot of Thor holding the iris open on a dying star and then just being shot across space as Rocket just tails after him, you know, also that they can get this weapon and just the extent that they go to get this thing.
And by the way, it's a cool weapon. It works. It totally cuts Thanos and everything.
I'd go as far as to say one of my favorite scenes in the film is when Thor, Rocket, and Groot appear in Wakanda at the end of the movie. The Avengers theme kicks in. That was one of the few parts where the crowd we were watching it with actually started to cheer a little bit.
Nice.
That was just a really fantastic moment. And just the first thing he says is like, "Bring me Thanos!"
Hell yeah.
And then just starts to destroy everything with like one big thing, and he throws the axe and it's flying all over the place. Are you guys familiar with Stormbreaker in the comics?
No.
Not really.
Okay, so in the comics, Stormbreaker is basically the same thing. It is a axe hammer weapon, and it belongs to a character by the name of Beta Ray Bill.
Oh, Beta Ray? Oh, yeah.
Beta Ray Bill is basically another version of Thor in some ways.
But he's like a horseman.
He is. Yeah, he's a weird-looking dude, but he's so powerful that Odin actually decided to give him his very own special weapon, which is the Stormbreaker, which looks a little different, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same weapon. It's an axe hammer. But he's a pretty popular character, and a little fun fact, if you go back and you watch Thor Ragnarok, on the massive tower that the Grand Master stays in, Beta Ray Bill's face is one of the things that is carved into the side, along with Hulk and a few other Marvel characters who may or may not appear in the future.
You can see him on the second to the right. Go up.
It's the one thing we were missing, man, was Grand Master.
Go to the right, Corey.
Right.
Keep going, one more over. That one shows the weapon really well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously looked a little different in the film. Groot was a part of its creation and everything. But still, it was great to bring that in. And I mean, just saying the name out loud, Stormbreaker, it's just so badass. I just thought it was really awesome.
I thought Rocket was going to get his own epic weapon, but they didn't have time to make him one. You know?
It would have been pretty cool, but I mean, Rocket, he works better with giant, oversized guns.
Yeah, he doesn't need some axe or anything. That is a good point.
And yeah, that scene where he did team up with Winter Soldier was pretty cool. Winter Soldier has a new arm, which ultimately really means nothing, as he got erased by the end of the movie. Yeah, let's talk about that. What did you guys think about all the characters actually getting like erased?
I loved it. I loved that everyone's dead.
It needed to happen. I love that, like, they did kill off the entire B team Avengers. We're left with the original A team, and that's it. And, like, you know, if you guys know any of the rumors for Avengers 4, the kind of poetry you see with it going back to the original Avengers.
Do you mean Infinity War 2 or Avengers 4? No,
Avengers 4, which is Infinity War 2.
Okay,
yeah,
just so I understand.
Split up in that way, definitely. Yeah, but the big rumor with that is, of course, the whole, you know, now that time travel has been incorporated via the Time Stone, is that, of course, they're going to go back and they're going to correct all this stuff. And, you know, just kind of seeing like what they could eventually do with that.
I mean, yeah, if you want to talk about how they can fix the problem of half the team getting erased, there's many options there, actually.
Yeah.
But definitely, what did I think about everyone being erased at the end? Well, not everyone got killed by Thanos or anything like that. Like, essentially, at the end, they just pull a giant half of everyone's erased, so that also means half the superheroes have to be erased, which I think is sort of bullshit. Like, it's 50% of the people, but still, isn't it a 50-50 shot if you get erased? So is it really half the Avengers have to get erased?
Well,
they could just be randomly selected, you know? I thought they killed too many people. But at the end of the day, they're going to bring them all back. They essentially killed all the Guardians.
Yeah, except for Rocket.
Except
He's
for
the only one who
Rocket.
survived, which is pretty interesting, I have to say.
Yep.
Pretty bold choice.
Well, I think it's a little poetic again, because, you know, earlier in the film, you see Rocket sitting there saying when, you know, Thor's like, I've lost everyone, and then Rocket's like, well, I've got a lot to lose. And it's like, yeah, and you're going to lose all of it. And then here it goes, you know? Rocket's the only one left. All his friends, his new family, they're just all gone, and he's just left there on Earth with these Avengers, and he's just a raccoon now. So
seriously, like, he has no idea who any of these people are now. He's gonna have to team up with them. I hope to see more Thor Rocket in the sequel, because they were really fun together. They worked really well together. Yeah, I like that. I like how they sort of, not only they had that one moment, but Christian, you were bringing this up earlier. There's the whole thing with Gamora and Star-Lord, and then there's Vision and Scarlet Witch, where the roles are sort of reversed, male and female. One character's supposed to kill the other, and blah, 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 blah. Which I thought was perfectly sadistic for Thanos. I love that Scarlet Witch killed Vision, and it meant nothing.
You just rewound time, and then when you see her reaction, just that scream, man, like that's when my heart stopped. That was like one of those moments of like understanding just how fucked these guys really are.
And how powerful Thanos is.
Oh,
he
yeah.
can pretty much do whatever he wants.
That final scene where he just arrives on Earth and just everybody who runs into him just gets completely destroyed.
One question, though. When Bruce Banner was in the Hulkbuster running at Thanos, and like Thanos just phases the Hulkbuster into like transparency, and he just kind of, basically phases right through Thanos and into the rock wall behind him, and then Hulkbuster's stuck in this rock wall. But then at the very end of the movie, you see Hulkbuster there again, just standing with like, Steve Rogers and everybody else there at the very end. And it's like, man, how did he get out of that?
It's either a mistake or he just busted out of the wall.
Is the Hulkbuster that power? I guess that would make sense. It's Hulk plus Iron Man,
I mean, look at what some of Iron Man's tech can do. Speaking of which, man, wasn't Iron Man's new weapon so cool in this movie?
It came out
one?
of like every which direction. He had a thing that stopped Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet from closing. He had a sword. He had
like a suction cup thing for the outside of the Q ship.
Yeah, he had a
How about
double.
that scene at the end where he's able to lock onto Thanos with his arms and his legs to hold him down? Like he was doing some like straight up like Ralph Macchio shit, just like coming in, boom, boom, and just like punched him in the face. Or the scene at the beginning with Ebony Maw, where the panels came out from his back and created an even bigger
laser beam. Yeah,
like that was so freaking.
It's like
solid,
Gundam
man.
Shit with what do they call them? Funnels.
It was totally funnels, man. That's what he was doing, and I loved that. And I will say that of all the films that have featured Iron Man, this is the first one in a while where I was like, whoa. Iron Man, you have my attention again. You're being really awesome in this movie.
And he's finally using the they didn't really get into it, but Iron Man's like final form is when he's pretty much injected with his suit, and his suit can come out through his skin. And they're not that close yet, but they're pretty much getting there because it materialized out of nothing almost.
People were talking about that before the movie came out. They've all been waiting to see that armor, which in
the Bleeding
comics,
Edge armor.
Bleeding Edge, which is a cool name.
Yeah.
I thought that this was the Bleeding Edge, but maybe it's not.
I mean, I think because like the Bleeding Edge comes out of his skin, bleeding, that kind of effect. With this one, it was like a nanite particle kind of thing, like just sitting on his chest where his normal arc reactor used to be.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
he
essentially
fancier with every film.
It essentially could repair itself because I assume it's sort of like I'm going to compare it to alchemy from like Full Metal Alchemist. Like you could keep repairing a suit of armor, but it just kept getting thinner and thinner. Like it would just spread out to cover an area. Obviously not until the end because it pretty much ran out of material.
Yeah, I mean, that scene at the end where Thanos punches him and the mask breaks off, but then instantly starts to regenerate. Like that was pretty solid right there.
Yeah,
I did love that.
I will say, Tony getting stabbed, man. Like
he got Killmongered.
I wanted that to be the moment, but not
They didn't kill him.
He's gonna die in Avengers 4.
Survived.
He will.
He's just gonna retire. He's gonna be old man Tony in the back.
So what about Loki, guys?
What about Loki? Loki dead.
Loki got murked, bro.
First off, man, that kind of broke my heart. It's
Loki,
like after
Loki
Ragnarok.
dying is not a big deal. Cause
Tom Hiddleston has done his role in this.
Yeah.
Is that the name of the actor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, he has done his role in the Avengers. He can pass away now.
I feel like after Ragnarok, though, like we all finally got a little closer to Loki, and then we see him again at the beginning of Infinity War, and he's all kind of coming to the good side with the things that he says, I am Odin's son kind of thing, looks Thor in the eye and then pulls that knife on Thanos, and then Thanos just snaps his neck, It's like, man, Loki, no, where's your mischievous alter self who just stabs him from the back, But that whole fight scene between Hulk and Thanos, man, I think that really showed a lot of power on Thanos' behalf. Because, they're essentially the same size, evenly matched in strength, but it's the tactical response that Thanos has. He just puts the Hulk into the dirt, man, like no problem. Even Ebony Maw says, let him have his fun,
That little body slam he does to finish off Hulk, just the silence after it. Just, it was so awe-inspiring. I love that. And then Thor comes over and hits him with a friggin' pipe, thinking that's going to do something. No, he just ends up just getting completely wasted.
I like that they picked up. That's how the movie pretty much started, right? They picked up from Thor Ragnarok, essentially.
They even skipped ahead a little bit by just showing that everything got completely destroyed with no sign of Korg or Valkyrie, by the way.
Dude, yeah, I know. She's off drinking, right?
Seriously.
They couldn't afford her.
That's kind of an oversight, in my opinion.
She was off filming the new Westworld season.
Yeah, that's probably realistically it.
Yeah.
It honestly does make sense. But I would have liked to at least seen Korg, if only to hear his goofy voice again.
I know, just him and Meek, rock, paper, scissors jokes, and then out,
Yeah.
Now, before we jump into the characters, is there anything you didn't like about the movie?
I think I sort of mentioned that throughout already. I didn't like the love story stuff. That wasn't the Vision, specifically the Vision Scarlet Witch stuff, love story wise. Let's run off to Paris together. They'll never find us. Anyway, I don't really want to get into it. Wherever they were, Scotland, that's where they were.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I didn't like. And my favorite fight is the Titan fight.
I really didn't like Vormir. I mean, I spent years trying to figure out where this damn soul stone was, and I'm sitting there researching it, thinking like, oh, it's right in front of us, like every other stone, just so that it's on some other lost hidden planet that no one's ever heard of. And, and that ended up being, like, one of the coolest sequences in the entire film, though. Looking at Thanos, looking up at that mountain with that solar eclipse happening right behind him, like, that was epic, man. But just finding out, like, I felt attacked. Like, I'd done all this research and tried to predict this shit, all for naught, But still, it all came through in the end, and I think, like, the decisions that they made as filmmakers were definitely the right ones, especially with this whole Gamora kind of thing happening, and especially how you see her come back up at the end as child Gamora in the Soul Stone, in that little pocket dimension that they talk about. Because, I mean, there's another theory going around that, like, pretty much everyone who got phased out at the end, like the 50% of the universe that died, they died in that fashion because they went into the Soul Stone instead of just pop, gone, And so, I definitely think that's got some more material for how Avengers 4 is going to be built up and how they might bring them back.
So what was
those people who got phased out are going to be pretty upset over the shortage of no chairs.
Oh my god.
That's for damn sure. That is kind of taken from the comics, though, a little bit. There is like a dimension in a world that exists within the Soul Stone that Adam Warlock is actually stuck in. So I think that's kind of cool. They didn't introduce Adam Warlock yet.
Guardians 3.
Yeah.
Guardians 3, yeah.
I am a little confused about this whole Soul Stone thing, though, because, like, there was the Wakanda theory originally, and it made sense with, like,
That's
the heart-shaped
plant.
plant.
To their,
why they could go back and, visit that spirit realm. Well, it's like, now, what the hell actually is that spirit realm that Black Panther goes to?
They're just tripping.
Yeah, it's like, he's just tripping. He's just on drugs, bro.
Yeah, just some meteor dust.
Yeah.
Hit that meteor dust, bro. Get that vibranium blaze.
Just snort a line of vibranium.
Yeah. Go visit.
That's how he gets his powers,
I saw dead people, bro.
It is the Wakandan vibranium.
Yeah.
All right, so
get you
now that we
higher
sort
than
of-
draft pussy. Sorry. Anyway, I love that line.
It's awesome. It's so fun to do the Black Panther voice.
Yeah.
But so we've given our thoughts on the film, but let's get down to the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to talk about each of the individual characters. We're not going to spend too long on each one because some
There's
characters
10 of
barely
them.
appear.
There's 37 of them.
It's ridiculous. So let's go ahead and start from the top. We'll start with who started it all. Iron Man, Tony Stark himself.
Well, he's going to die in the next movie because he made reference to having a child, so the concept of legacy is the first, he's the first one to bring that up. Everything else was just kind of fulfilling the visions he'd had in the past from, like, Age of Ultron and everything. And I was kind of bored with Iron Man, to be honest with you. Yeah, his suit was cool. Big props to the CG department. But his actual character development, I mean, he was just there. He didn't faze me.
Okay, so I actually really liked Iron Man. Not to completely disagree with Jordan, but I thought his leadership has gotten better because he knows not how to just because he can shit on someone, he doesn't go for it because he's a little more reserved on how he talks to people now. And I thought him and Doctor Strange were the best combo in the whole movie. So I actually really liked it. And of course, all his tech that we talked about on his suit was, I think he was the most flashiest. Besides Thor's new hammer Stormbreaker, like he was the flashiest of the Avengers. If anything, Captain America is the exact opposite. He's wearing all black. He's got a beard. His shields are very subtle compared to his old shield. They're very black, like blackwash. Like gunmetal gray instead of like red, white, and blue.
Didn't they officially rename him Nomad now? Like, he's no longer technically Captain America, I believe.
I refuse to call him.
Oh, fuck that. Fuck that bullshit. He's Captain America. And but yeah, I liked Iron Man.
Iron Man, loved him. In fact, this is probably the most I've loved Iron Man since the very first Avengers film. I think it was the best showcase for the character. All of his brand new tech was incredibly fun to watch, and seeing his world completely crumble was incredibly sad to see, especially because he encounters all of these characters who are there to sacrifice themselves. Doctor Strange, they get into it a lot in the film, and Strange ends up sacrificing himself for Tony's sake. Tony's relationship with Peter Parker, I think, is one of the strongest elements of this entire franchise. In that moment, I think the one moment that hit me the most when all the characters are disappearing was Spider-Man.
When he got Uncle Bended?
Yeah.
Because,
he got Uncle
wow, just... Tony, you could see the depression on his face. He couldn't say anything. There was nothing he could do. Since Spider-Man has spider senses, he knew something bad was about to happen to him. And hearing him just break down and saying that he doesn't want to die and he wants to be saved, and then he just dies right there on the spot, you could totally see Tony's defeat right there. And it was just, it hit so hard, especially because he just survived when he should have died. It was just a really big moment for his character, and he's been through a lot of shit since the Avengers, but I really think this is the big moment here. But mostly superficially speaking, he just kicked ass. I loved all of his weapons, all of his fight scenes. They just looked really great. His interactions with Star-Lord were really, really funny. I really loved that. Star-Lord was kind of a dick, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, that's Iron Man. Let's go ahead and move on to this one's going to be short, by the way, the Incredible Hulk.
Lack thereof.
Well, he got his ass beat, and that's it.
Yep.
I like his character development. It's showing that Hulk can get embarrassed or beat up, and he has an emotional range now. He's actually a character, not just an angry thing. Everything Thor Ragnarok, he has a character now. Glad they're developing him. I wish he had more cool stuff, but obviously they're saving his redemption as character development for the second movie.
They totally tricked us. They rickrolled us. They showed Hulk in the trailer running with the group in Wakanda.
They did.
And
Yeah.
They
fucked us.
Yeah,
I
they
didn't know
totally screwed us, man. They were really playing with it. There are a lot of scenes actually in the trailer and a lot of bits of dialogue which were completely removed from the film. All just to sort of mess with us a little bit. That being said, Hulk at the beginning was awesome. Jordan, you said the fight with Thanos and everything. I agree. It was just hard-hitting and amazing. I loved it. Seeing Hulk get sent down to Earth and interact with everyone was great. Bruce was funny because throughout the entire movie, he just desperately wanted to bring out the Hulk but couldn't, and they played it up for laughs a lot. But seeing him in the Hulkbuster armor at the end was really satisfying and fun. But yeah, really, just that's all there really is to the Hulk in this movie, or as Christian said, lack thereof.
It's like Bruce Banner had ED, but his ED was the Hulk.
Exactly. He just couldn't get it up, bro.
Yeah.
The whole him seeing Black Widow thing again, though, I thought that was a little silly how they tried to bring that love relation back in. And it's like, I know it's just a hint of it, but just leave that alone. Like, Black Widow, just go do your own thing. Hulk, go do your own thing.
And they didn't even go far. It was basically them just saying, "Oh, hey,
and
that's
then
it."
she smiles, a little glimmer of hope, and just kill that shit, guys.
The fact of the matter is, there wasn't any more room though to introduce any more.
Did
of their
Black
story.
Panther? Not Black Panther. Black Widow make it, or she get dissolved?
Yeah, she made it.
She's alive.
Yeah, all
Okay.
the original Avengers are still there,
Except we don't really know about Hawkeye or
and Ant-Man, which
They barely count.
We'll bring
get
that
to
up at the
that,
very
yeah.
end because they did just release a new Ant-Man trailer. But moving on, because we just have so many characters to get through, we have Captain America. Again, I liked Captain America, but he really wasn't in the movie that much.
No, he was barely in it. I felt like, again, he's a tactician, so he sort of hung back and fought in the Wakanda battle. He had his cool, overplayed in the trailer scene with him grabbing Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet. They made that seem huge in the trailer. That shit was subtle in the movie and quick.
He just puts his hand down, and then Captain America is just trying to hold it up the best he can, and then Thanos just punches him in the head.
With the other hand. He's like, wait, okay, well, if you're holding that hand, I'll just fucking hit you with this other hand, and we'll be good,
Yeah, the trailers made it seem like Cap was going to be a lot more important, but ultimately he showed up during that big scene when they're in Scotland.
Ooh, man, his entry point right there was just like, when that music kicked in, I actually felt such a massive sense of relief, and I've never been a huge Captain America fan, but man, when I heard that music chime in and you see him just appear from behind that train, it's just like, finally.
I like how they sort of addressed the Civil War shit in this movie, and the government wants War Machine to arrest him, but he's like, nah, we're cool. And then they just keep going, so...
But yeah, I wish he would have had more of a traditional look to him. I think with every movie, his suit gets progressively darker.
He's getting X-Men.
Yeah, it started out so patriotic, classic Captain America, and now it's like almost all black. He doesn't have his shield, which he has the new shields, which are the ones he wears on his arm, but they're nowhere near as cool. He can't throw them and, ricochet them off of things or anything, so I was kind of hoping for more of that. But again, Captain America really just didn't do that much in this movie, and I was convinced he was going to die. I thought him and Iron Man are at the top of the heap for getting killed, and they both survived.
They both survived.
Yeah.
They're just killing B-team dudes. Only B-team people.
Until
B-team.
the next one.
Speaking of the next one, this guy was my favorite character from the film Thor. Freaking Thor. Just, what can I say? I think he had the best story arc in the entire film. His new weapon, the God of Thunder returned, and he was awesome, and he got a brand new eye.
Yeah, I was a little irritated about that, man. Why'd you go through the hassle of cutting out that dude's eye if you're just going to bring it back, Just,
because
here you go.
CG's expensive. They're like, fuck that shit.
Yeah, it's like I feel like they were
But it was an eye
covering a
patch.
mistake.
Oh, yeah, that's true. He had an eye patch. Well, maybe it's hard to act with an eye patch on all the time.
Maybe.
So
And
he's like,
even though traditionally Thor doesn't have an eye patch in the comics, he looks cool with it.
yeah.
I mean, it just
Angel
makes...
pirate.
Yeah, I mean, just give him a cigar and he's like the coolest fucking person in the planet. But I mean, everything he did in the movie was great. His interactions with the Guardians was really, really funny, especially with Star-Lord, who, again, total douche.
This is a man. You're not a man. You're a dude.
You're like a bagel away from being overweight. Or whatever he said.
It's like you're one sandwich away from being fat.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I'm going to commit. I'm going to get a Bowflex. And it's like, you're in the middle of space, homie.
I'm going to commit.
But any other thoughts on Thor?
Thor's probably one of the best characters in the damn movie. I don't really even need to add too much to that. I mean, he's awesome. His new weapon is probably cooler than his old weapon, which I didn't think was possible. It has more lightning.
More lightning.
Yeah.
And it can cut things.
Yeah,
And he
ever
just
since
comes in
Ragnarok,
and kicks
he's just-
ass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ever since Rag, he's just been...
That's a good point, actually. Sorry to interrupt you. But
No, it's cool.
Ragnarok essentially established that character as a lot more interesting, too. Before he was just a self-centered douche, and he would get motivated at the last minute. But now he's actually a character with humility, depth, and, sort of understands how the universe works. And just because he's super powerful, he understands that actually doesn't mean shit,
And he's pretty much the last of his kind, too.
Yeah. So it's sort of an interesting development. And Thor, I think, is one of the best developed characters of the MCU, for sure.
All right, well, moving on, we have the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Man, loved him. I thought he was perfect. Iron Spider was exactly what I wanted it to be. I'm glad we got those legs. Like, that shit was just on point. No complaints on Spider-Man's behalf, man. He was funny, he kicked ass, and he was just Spider-Man to the T.
Mm-hmm. Tom Holland's the best Peter Parker I've ever seen. Hands down, he encapsulates the character. It's kind of like how Robert Downey Jr. was born to play Iron Man. Ryan Reynolds was born to play Deadpool. Tom Holland is a great Peter Parker. He's funny. He's smart. The Iron Spider suit, just that suit-up sequence when he is falling out of the sky of a massive spaceship and it lands on him and covers his entire body was awesome. I did not expect to see the spider legs, though. That was awesome. Loved it so much. And they had fun with it. Not only did they make him move around like an actual spider, but the scene at the end where he saves Mantis on Titan and like he's skidding across the ground and the spider legs are twirling around and like wrapping around his body and making it so that he doesn't eat the entire impact. Just whoever thought of that, give that man a raise. It was so good. I loved it.
It wasn't just him hanging off shit with the legs holding him. Because that's the easy thing to do. Like him just hanging off a ledge and, his body's dangling off but his legs are holding him. Like, the legs did shit.
They
And
were a tool.
They were a tool, and they were sort of almost their own character, just like Doctor Strange has his cape. Now Spider-Man has his spider legs. Iron Man has a suit. It's kind of a cool progression. I also think Spider-Man, I never saw Homecoming. So for me, this is my introduction to Spider-Man. So I think that it was a great introduction.
Freaking out here, man.
I didn't know you'd never seen Homecoming.
I still never saw it. Yeah, so for me, this is like my first introduction to that Spider-Man. And I get it. It's a fun, young, naive sort of Spider-Man versus an older, in college, like sort of is a badass Spider-Man.
When you get home, dude, watch Spider-Man Homecoming.
No, I'm good.
If anything, just for Michael Keaton.
Just for Michael Keaton?
Yeah.
Okay, is this Vulture?
His Vulture is really good, and Michael Keaton's just fun to watch.
Okay, I'll see it.
Birdman.
Birdman.
He's Birdman.
Exactly.
He's Batman. He's Birdman. He's what?
The Birdman. So, Spider-Man's awesome. We're all in agreement there. But what about Doctor Strange?
Dude, a little bit of a dick in this one. But he did call Tony out pretty hardcore for also being a dick, And I like that, like, I like that Strange wasn't really brought in as an Avenger, you know? It's like, because even Tony mentioned, like, I tried to vet you once, and it's like, no, that just didn't work well. So he's just kind of there doing his own thing. Definitely not as much comedy from him, though, that's for sure. But his character was super supportive in every role or in every element that he was in. And then, like you said earlier, Corey, his fight scene with Thanos, man, like, I was just giddy as hell when I saw that. It was the coolest fight scene I've probably ever seen in a Marvel film. Maybe any film. I mean, it's impressive.
Like, every time he went into his fighting pose, I was just like, oh yeah, it's about to go down now. I love it too because before I was never a Doctor Strange fan. I was just like, he's just that one-off Marvel character that I just don't really care about. The movies have made me care about him and wanted to read about more of him in the comics just for how incredibly different and interesting he is. And it sucks that like some of the best stuff I've seen from Doctor Strange hasn't even been from his own film. It's been from Ragnarok and this right here. And this one right here was taken up to 11 in every way. And I love that he didn't take Iron Man shit, because everybody takes Iron Man shit, but not Doctor Strange. He sort of one-upped him in many ways. And their sort of relationship throughout the film definitely came to a head at the end, which a lot of people have made theories about. When he was talking about the many outcomes that could exist with them winning. One of those outcomes where they win could be that he has to sacrifice himself in order to let Tony live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he has an extremely clear vision of the future, but I think what he understands is Iron Man has to live to let that one version happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who knows? Maybe he has an extremely crystal clear version and he understands everything that's going to happen. But I think that was interesting. And I really liked Doctor Strange, but I just really felt like he was a glass cannon. Like, as soon as he got hit, he was done. He doesn't have the endurance of some of the other superheroes. Like, he's not going to win anywhere near hand-to-hand with, like, Captain America, you know? Like, he fights in his own way. And it is very Naruto, very, like, Dragon Ball Z type shit. You know, it's very different.
Yeah, he made the shadow clones.
He made shadow clones,
yep.
You know? Or the clone technique in Dragon Ball Z, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
There's many different ones. And his style of fighting is... I find it interesting because you don't actually understand how he's attacking you. Like, what is happening to you when you get hit by his stuff. You know, it's sort of an interesting thing. So, yeah, I thought Doctor Strange was good. I just want another good Doctor Strange movie. You know?
Yeah, I was a little confused as to how he came from, you know, the first Doctor Strange movie where he was still essentially kind of in training through all of this, and he just coincidentally learned how to use the Time Stone, and that just so happened to be the only real weakness of Dormammu. But now, like... here we are down the line, and he's got all these other additional abilities, yet I have no idea really how he got those or what they are, you know. And that was a little confusing. But that being said,
he does a lot of reading in his spare time.
Yeah, it seems that way.
His cape is cool.
Wong was awesome.
Wong was cool. He's a really great sidekick character who managed to freaking cut off Cole Obsidian's arm and send him to the freaking Arctic.
I know,
that
right?
was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that scene.
What would Cole Obsidian do for a Klondike bar?
Also, just one more thing on Doctor Strange. I love how he teamed up with everybody on Titan. The big moment with Star-Lord in particular, where he put the bomb on Thanos' back and he flipped him off.
And dives in the hole.
Just boom! And then he just dives right in. Like, that was really cool.
It's like the ultimate Star-Lord moment, too.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, I'm a sarcastic asshole. I'm going to blow you up. Fuck off.
So, we got Doctor Strange, but let's move on to the King of Wakanda, Black Panther. Meh. He was in the movie.
I think I've already spoke about this. I found him to be extremely underwhelming, and the king, and then the guy that controls the barrier, but that's about it. Like, there wasn't much to Black Panther.
No, I mean...
He did this.
You can't see it, but he's doing the Wakanda arm cross thing.
Yeah.
I feel like he kind of took the place of Nick Fury to an extent. Like, there's no shield anymore, or at least not in this movie specifically. And so,
Wait, what
like,
about post-credit scene?
Yeah, we'll get there, you know?
We'll get there.
But yeah, I felt like he was just kind of the housing entity for the Avengers for this one, just like S.H.I.E.L.D. was in the past.
He was the hover carrier of the movie.
He was there to deliver all the trailer lines, is basically what it is. Wakanda forever! and friggin'
Get this man a shield.
Get this man a shield.
Yeah.
You know, but he did have a couple cool things, you know, just being Black Panther, jumping around, scratching things like a little kitty cat. The scene where he attacked Thanos and just got bitch slapped was pretty crazy. But yeah, just not that much from Black Panther, which I know for people who are still sort of riding the high of that film, they're probably going to be disappointed. But at least Wakanda was still here in full force. Okoye was in the movie, and she was still pretty awesome.
The girl power fight scene.
That was a little cringy, though.
Yeah, just a little bit.
When watching that in theater, I'm like, this is cool, but man, this is just a little girl power fight right here. And Scarlet Witch coming in and being awesome was cool, but I wanted more from Okoye as well. Basically, everybody from Wakanda, it felt like they were kind of underutilized.
They were filler.
But they were still a good backdrop, at least, for this big final battle.
Yeah. Titan was better. Hashtag Titan was better.
Titan was better. We've definitely gotten into our thoughts about these two, and we're going to go ahead and lump them together because of how connected they are. Vision and Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch, man, she's pretty powerful. I feel like this whole Vision love story thing, like, I feel like now that she's kind of killed him in that sense, like, I think that was the only function of it, you know, to show that they were very close and, like, they had to kind of develop this love and romance kind of, thing going on with them so that they could explain to the viewer that that's how they kind of discovered this super connection, how she can kind of control him in a sense, And I think in the end, like, it worked, but it was also just unnecessary. So
I didn't care about their love triangle or love. There's no love triangle. I just mean love story. Whatever. There's no third person. I take that back. I didn't care about it. We've heard me say this a lot. I don't want to shit on the movie. Overall, I liked it, but I didn't care about those characters.
I'm kind of in a different boat. I really liked their story a lot. I think it added a little more emotional depth to this movie, which is mostly just, bang, bang, punch, punch. That being said, I do agree that there were some moments where it did sort of stop the movie dead in its tracks. In particular, the earlier scene in Scotland, like when I was just like, okay, this is cool, but can we please get to someone firing a fucking laser or some shit? That being said, Scarlet Witch was awesome in this movie. The way that she took out Proxima Midnight was really satisfying, and probably the coolest display of her powers that we've ever seen. Even Okoye said it herself. Why was she up there? Why wasn't she down here fighting with us? So yeah, but really, I just don't have that much more to say. Both of the characters are a MacGuffin to serve the story.
I did think it was kind of interesting, though, how at the very end, as she's trying to kill Vision, or, like, save him, whatever you want to call it, Thanos is essentially right behind her, and she takes her second hand off of, like, that blast wave kind of killing Vision down and points it at Thanos, and she actually stops him. Like, almost dead in his tracks. Like, he's moving pretty slow. And he has 5 out of the 6 stones already.
Which is bullshit,
like,
by the way.
Yeah, he didn't apply any of it to that instance.
Well,
and,
Thanos is known, even with the stones, to just not use them to see if he can still beat you.
Okay, so it's an ego thing.
Yeah, it's like, and then randomly he'll be like, okay, I'm done playing, and he'll turn on the stones and just erase you.
Okay.
Yeah, he does that in the comics where, like, all the Avengers and all the heroes start to attack him, and he just freezes time instantly.
And he's like, I could go around and, like, pop all their brains right now.
Yeah.
But instead, he like, unfreezes time, and the next thing that happens is Hulk and Drax punch him in the face at the same time. Which, man, I was kind of hoping we'd see something like that, but nah, unfortunately, the characters never even met each other.
Did you guys like Drax in this one?
He did nothing.
That actually is a good segue, Jordan, because now we're moving on to the Guardians of the Galaxy, all of them.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and start with Drax, though. Drax, as always, is just, how can you not like Drax? He's funny as hell. He's badass. Although, it goes in line with Star-Lord. Something about Star-Lord really annoyed me in this movie, because basically everything that went wrong is Star-Lord's fault.
Yes.
And it's because he let his emotions get the best of him. He was upset that Gamora had been killed by Thanos, and he ruined their plan to try and steal the Infinity Gauntlet. But earlier on in the film, there's a scene where they go to nowhere and they find Thanos, and Drax is getting ready to attack him and go crazy, and Star-Lord stops him. Just right there. Like, I don't know, just something about that really annoyed me. Like, he got onto his case.
Hypocritical.
About him. Yeah, he got onto his case about don't get emotional, and then he fucks it up all at the end of the movie. So, I don't know, it annoyed me. But still, Drax was really funny. Star-Lord was great. Rocket, I mean, you can't not like Rocket. Mantis is funny. She's very much like Drax in many ways. Just the way she delivers her lines and everything.
Don't they end up getting paired up eventually?
Drax and Mantis?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. The way they kind of did it in Guardians 2, it seemed like that.
Yeah.
But it's I mean, they're always together. That's the thing, too.
I think it makes sense because one is emotionally dead and the other is extremely available to emotional vibes.
And they both kick names and take ass.
Yeah. It's sort of an interesting concept.
And, I mean, Gamora was obviously the most important member of the Guardians in this film.
What's her sister's name again? Why am I blanking?
Nebula.
Nebula. She was a cool member, I think, in this one.
Yeah, and she survived.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, my personal theory is she's going to be very important in the next movie, and if they follow the comics, she might get the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, because, like, it's her and Tony Stark. Like, they're just the only two people left on Titan right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, like,
Really? That's it?
That's
just
it?
Nebula and Tony, and they've never had a single interaction together. Like,
Yeah.
who the
who's
fuck are
this
these
blue
people? Yeah.
Can you breathe on that planet? Why is everyone able to breathe on that planet?
And that whole Drax thing where you can't see me, I'm moving really, really slow. You know, it's like, how long have you been standing there? An hour. Like, what? Loved it.
Why is Gamora?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, just Drax's
he had
delivery-
good Drax lines. I just don't feel like Drax got a chance to do any fight stuff.
Because he doesn't really do much aside from like pull out a knife.
And then poke things a lot.
Which is a
Yeah,
shame
like when
because in
he
the
was-
comics, in the comics, Drax is so cool. Like I said, that scene in the comics where both him and Hulk punch Thanos in the face. At
Well,
the
yeah,
same
he's
time.
also in the comics supposed to be kind of like a Hulk without Hulk endurance.
basically, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Space Hulk.
He's like Space Hulk, but he can, get tired. While Hulk, the madder and longer he fights, the stronger he gets. It's a little different in that sense.
But it's a very different type of Drax in the comic versions too. I mean, not only is his backstory different, but overall his look is a little different. His powers are, but still, what's the actor's name? Is it Bautista?
Dave Bautista, yeah.
Yeah. Man, he's such a funny character, though. I look forward to every scene that he's going to be in. His
Yeah.
banter with Star-Lord and Thor was always really fantastic. He was so enamored with Thor, too. He thought he was just like the coolest person that he'd ever seen.
It's like, that's a man. I'm a man. No, you're a dude.
And I think my favorite thing from the Guardian stuff, though, is not even like a big moment. It's mostly the transition to their scene when you hear the music coming in, and then you see because this is an ensemble with all these different characters, but they totally captured the energy of the Guardians in that moment,
Oh,
which I
yeah.
thought was really, really good. Like, it felt like James Gunn directed that scene.
Especially with the whole like rubber band man thing going on with the music, and they're sitting there just jamming out, and you've got all those like rainbow colors from the time space jump outside the windows of the Milano.
Yeah, it felt like you jumped into a Guardians film
Yeah.
for that moment, and then it got back to the overall serious tone again.
It's also a landmark because this is the first time the Guardians have actually interacted with these characters before, which unfortunately, due to how crazy everything was, there wasn't a lot of time for them to slow down and like, this is who I am, nice to meet you, blah blah blah. It was mostly just action, action, action. So
I'll take the rabbit in the tree.
I loved how he called him the rabbit, man. But like Rocket didn't even object to that. Usually you call Rocket a name and he's like, I'm not a baboon or whatever, you know? It's like, call him a rabbit. He just doesn't seem to give a shit.
I don't think he cares because it was Thor. I
Yeah,
think
that's
probably
more
the
than
only
likely
reason.
it.
Yeah.
okay, so the Guardians of the Galaxy. What about Winter Soldier?
I love Winter
He
Soldier.
did a thing.
I have the most in common with Winter Soldier, you know, being left-handed and long brown hair and an old man in a young man's body kind
You
of
could
feel.
cosplay as Winter Soldier and pull it off, dude.
Yeah, I probably could. But
I
then
like-
Rocket would steal my arm, so...
Yeah. That's what you could do. You could have a rocket holding your arm.
Or you just you get like a stuffed rocket or something. You can like hold that up with a gun and stuff. Like,
And
dude,
it's-
you need to cosplay as Winter Soldier.
I'd just be going around, like, spinning around Dragon Con, just...
Exactly.
That'd be it.
Awesome. The pictures set themselves up, but
Right.
But yeah, Winter Soldier, like Captain America, just he's like, "Hey, I'm here. Cool, new arm. Let's fight. I'm gone. Bye." Like that's basically it. He has a new arm, which does look cool, but again, it means nothing when he gets erased by
Yeah,
the end
it's
of
just
the
all
film.
gone. Here's
It
this new
looks more of a
vibranium arm.
Killmonger suit arm than a Black Panther arm because it has the gold inlays.
It even has almost looks like tiger stripes.
Yeah, it's kind of
I know.
cool. It's definitely a cooler arm. It's a way better arm than the last one.
I think he was the first one to actually start erasing too. I'm not 100%.
Yeah,
on that.
Bucky was the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anything else on Winter Soldier?
There wasn't much more of him, really.
Yeah.
Like, just the scene with him and Rocket, that was the coolest thing. You know, that was straight.
Okay. Well, now moving on to another character who doesn't get as much screen time again is Black Widow.
Man, how does she get her own movie?
And they're working on that. Like,
Yeah,
they
like,
are
that's a
legitimately
thing.
trying to get her own film. I mean, it's if you like Black Widow before, you're gonna like her here. She does what she always does. She grapples people, she flips them around, beats the crap out of them, and says something kind of quippy and funny.
And the other thing is she's a team player like Captain America. Captain America's at his best when he's actually helping control powerful people, and help game planning and battle plan. Scarlet Witch, Black Widow is very similar to that. She works good as a group, not as a solo character. So what the fuck are you doing giving her her own movie?
What do you think of the What do you think of the blonde hair?
Man, no.
I got better things to worry about.
Okay, have you guys seen The Fifth Estate with Benedict Cumberbatch where he plays Julian Assange?
I've never seen it, but I've seen the previews.
Okay. Scarlett Johansson with blonde hair like that looks just like Benedict Cumberbatch with blonde hair.
I saw or heard about that meme online.
Yeah, and like you look at it, it's pretty spot on, bro. So that just killed it for me.
Cumberbatch looks weird in general, though. You could say he looks like a lot of things.
It's kind of like the
like has a no chin, but yet he has a chin line. It's like it's a weird.
Got the
face.
Uma Thurman eyes, spreading apart slowly.
He has like a long face. You know, it's like it's a weird setup. But he got famous, so keep practicing. Anyone.
We'll all get there.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go down to some of what I'm going to call the C-listers. These are guys who are not necessarily mainlining their own films, but they're still pretty popular and have a big following. We have Falcon, Sam Wilson.
He's like
not much to say.
He's like the less cool War Machine.
In a way.
War Machine's already not that cool, man.
What? War Machine drops bombs.
We'll get to War Machine in a second, but Falcon, he wasn't in this movie that much. He made his appearance with Captain America, and he was in the Scotland area, and he did some pretty cool things, and then he kind of flew around Wakanda a little bit, and that's it.
Don't get your wings burned.
So, yeah. There was Falcon. I think Falcon deserves so much more. I still love watching him. I love his abilities, but yeah, it was basically more of the same from what we saw from Civil War with Falcon.
Yeah, I feel like Falcon is just almost so closely related to Ant-Man at this point. Like, that seems to be, like, if I think of Falcon, I think of that whole scene every single time, even though he's been in a ton of other stuff. Yeah. But all I ever think about when I think of Falcon is him just saying, nah, Tic Tac.
I just think Falcon's another one of those characters that works good as a group, and he doesn't solo very well. Mm-hmm. So it's like, and the group was so big, he sort of got lost in it.
Yeah.
So.
And that brings us to War Machine. Now,
I liked War Machine a lot.
War Machine in this movie, while he wasn't in it very much, he was really cool. One, we finally got to see Don Cheadle with the robot legs, which was pretty awesome.
Lieutenant Dan.
It all goes back to Lieutenant Dan every time.
Yeah, your special space legs.
But I love how he was just like, he told Lieutenant Ross basically to fuck off, we're doing our own thing. And some of the stuff he did in the final battle with just all of the missiles and lasers exploding out of his suit at the end just looked, for a guy who just likes explosions, it's awesome. Like, it's a spectacle. It's really cool to see. And anytime there's a scene with War Machine, I get pretty excited because he's so underutilized. And I still love that when compared to Iron Man, whose suit continues to get even sleeker and crazier, War Machine still tends to look old, beat up, and just bulky as hell and just filled to the brim with weapons. He lives up to the name War Machine.
They put more and more shoulder pads on the dude and bigger guns, and I'm like, good. That's exactly how War Machine should look.
Like, how about that bombing run he did when he was like flying along the line of the force field and everything, and just lighting up everything, just really satisfying.
I was a little confused there on whether I was watching Infinity War or Apocalypse Now, to be honest with you. It was like very old school war feeling, like dropping napalm.
Yeah, that's kind of what he is. He's like anything you need him to be, War Machine. Like, he can be a tank, he could be a bombing run, he can just riddle you with bullets, like that's kind of what he does. And obviously he has his laser beams too.
And he survived, which is awesome. So I'm hoping we'll get to see another classic Iron Man War Machine team up in the next movie.
That will be cool.
So we've talked a lot about the main characters, but there are some really cool surprises for this film. We've already talked about the Black Order, but another big villain actually makes an appearance in this film, and that is Red Skull.
Spoilers.
Who expected to see Red Skull in this movie?
I didn't. I thought they ran out of money. How the hell did they hire Hugo Weaving?
It actually was not Hugo Weaving.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
It seemed like it was.
No, Hugo Weaving is above these comic book movies.
Him and Natalie Portman, they're just way more important now.
What? He's fucking the star of Lord of the Rings.
I know. That's what's ridiculous about it. Hugo Weaving has been the voice of Megatron, for Christ's sake, and he's embarrassed to be in this? It's insane, but still, getting to see... The good thing about Red Skull, though, is it's makeup. It's covered in it. They can make just about any character work for that, and I didn't expect it at all. Like, when I saw that cloaked figure for the first time, I'm like, who's this? Is this just some random creepy ghost guy? It's the fucking Red Skull! Holy shit! And he's turned into some sort of weird wraith that's forever has to live in purgatory and look over the resting place of the Soul Stone. It's just... It shows what actually happened to his character when he touched the Tesseract back in the 40s.
No, what's he doing now that Thanos has the Soul Stone, though? Is Red Skull just chilling there like, fuck, I have no purpose?
Now that the stone has been taken, Red Skull is probably free, which means Red Skull could come back and do something, which I want to see, because Red Skull, I think, is a really great classic Marvel villain. He's got a very unique look. And to see him return,
special powers.
He could come back and revive Hydra and make it even crazier before, now that he possibly has powers. It could be really insane. But I did not expect that at all.
Maybe he can go through walls like Slimer. Like that's his thing.
He's Slimer. All right.
But
New Ghostbusters with
but
Red
it's
Skull.
black goo instead of green goo.
With black.
He's just a wraith now.
He is. But yeah, did you guys have anything else you want to say about Red Skull? Or
He was in it.
he was in it.
He said some stuff.
He said some stuff. Wasn't too shocked to see these people at all either. So
Nah.
he's become quite comfortable in his role as the wraith of that planet. It makes sense though, considering he's been there since the 40s.
You know, I will say one thing about something he said though, because one thing we find off earlier in the film is that Gamora isn't legitimately Thanos' daughter, and if you've seen any of the other films, there's definitely signs of that, pretty obviously placed in front of you. But I think it's interesting how, like, at the end of all this Red Skull character, who's almost like the gatekeeper to the Soul Stone, kind of like this kind of almost ethereal complex, he refers to Gamora as Thanos' daughter. So it's like no matter how much she hates him, she will always be defined by Thanos. And it's like, that was just kind of a cool little instance right there of, declaring who these people are and how they will be perceived, regardless of their wishes.
All right, so Red Skull, we're going to go ahead and end it on one more character, arguably the most important character of the film. We've already talked about him in length, but what are your final thoughts on Thanos the Mad Titan?
Okay, so I think Thanos, again, I've given him some props already. I think that his story development is done really well. He's the only character that really gets story development because we didn't have time for everybody to get story development. So I felt like they invested that wisely on just him. And I don't know. I think Thanos, without getting too crazy into it, is one of the best villains that I've seen in MCU. And I didn't even want that to be true. Like, I was like, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to nitpick this fucking movie. And I left and I was like, I got nothing. He's good. At the end of the film, when he looks tired and the weight of what he's done has beat him up just as much as his gauntlet looks beat up, just as much as he's over it, he's glad it's done. He just wants to watch the sunset on his Cliff World or wherever he is. Cliff Rice Patty. Cliftonville, wherever he's in. It looked good. And I was like, his victory isn't sweet. And I appreciated that that's how they ended it, you know? And yeah, I liked him a lot.
I felt like he was awesome, and his display of power and strength was pretty abundant throughout the film. With that being said, he has the damn Infinity Gauntlet and like 5 of the stones before the end of the movie even comes out. And like the most epic thing I think you even see Thanos do is he brings a moon down on Tony Stark while they're on Titan. But that's the big one instance, and that's just for one dude, And it's like, I feel like you have the ability to bend reality to whatever you want. Like, why are you going through all this shit, bro? And again, you guys said earlier, he liked fighting him. He likes seeing what he can do. But man, like, I kind of really hope like he's in Avengers 4 in some manner so that we can really see like just some more destruction of this Mad Titan.
I guarantee you're going to get your wish with the next Avengers. There's no way that Thanos is not going to get back into the fight and do some really crazy stuff.
Good. Yeah, and that's also something you got to look for in the future. Corey, sorry to cut you off before you do your description, but
that's all good. Thanos
is wrestling with the ability to be a god now, because in the beginning of some of the comics he has all 5. That's kind of how it starts.
Yeah,
it's like boom, he has all 5, and now let's see what he does with the power of a god, so it's sort of like that's the big thing. But I also don't see Thanos as a guy that, because like you said, Jordan, he could just erase all of them from existing. He did that with the Guardians. You know how he turned 2 of them into spaghetti?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he can just do that to anyone at any moment. He doesn't actually physically have to fight anyone.
Yeah.
And if they do hit him, he could just rewind time and then figure out how to move so it doesn't happen. So, like, he just chooses to fight people, essentially. So let's see if that changes going into the next movie. If he's like, let's just fight to fight, So we'll see how that goes.
Far and away, Thanos is the best villain in the MCU currently. I mean, he left such a massive impact. His actual backstory, they fleshed out. They gave him pathos. You cared about him as an actual character. You were scared of him when he actually appeared. And the way that they utilized the power of the Infinity Stones was really great. Christian, I'm glad you brought that up because I almost forgot about it. When he transforms Mantis and Drax into like a statue and spaghetti and stuff. They did that in the comics. Like, he would turn people into like cubes and stuff, and he would do this really crazy, outlandish stuff because of the power of the Reality Stone. He can quite literally do whatever he wants.
He can change you down to a genetic level,
Exactly.
Did you guys notice that Thanos seems to have a thing for bubbles?
He does, yeah. When there were a couple scenes in the movie like where Star-Lord is a...
I have a theory on the bubbles thing. I think it's just easy to do CG-wise and make it look real, so that's why they did it.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also just funny, too. Like, when Star-Lord's about to shoot Gamora, and then boom, the bubbles come out. But there were a couple other times when bubbles appeared with him.
The bubbles, my bubbles.
It's very humiliating, I think, because the idea of a gun turning into a bubble gun is like kind of a humiliation move.
Yeah.
So I think that's why.
But my biggest fear with Thanos originally was like, are they just going to make him like Purple Hulk? He's just going to run in and do Hulk stuff. No, he utilized every single power of the Infinity Stones, and it all looked really visually interesting. His battle on Titan was probably my favorite action scene from all of the Marvel films. Him snapping his fingers at the end was what I was hoping for the most. My personal theory was the movie was going to end with him just doing that, but for him to actually do it and end up actually like taking out like half of the Avengers and all the other heroes and everything was just nuts. I loved it. I loved that it lived up to the comic, and just everything that Brolin brought to this role worked so freaking well. Just love Thanos. Can't get enough of him.
Yeah, I mean, I even remember hearing somewhere on the internet, seeing that the directors had kind of said, like, this is more of a Thanos movie than it is really an Avengers movie. Because, like, we might be tapping into the Avengers and all these other characters, but the one person who we're following the strongest throughout the entire narrative was undeniably Thanos, you know? And just, I'd like to see how that moves forward into Avengers 4, or Infinity War 2, as you know, they with all these additional theories about going back in time and shit like this, and you know, just like how else then, you know, with the whole Captain Marvel thing as well.
Other thing, I actually think I have a theory, or I have an opinion on Thanos. Before we get too far away from him, I think that his motivation being more about balance in the universe and the human connection to the people, you know, having to sacrifice Gamora and everyone knowing that they're going to have to make sacrifices right now, was a way better motivation than Lady Death. Because it's just way more relatable than this weird hyper-dimensional creature called Lady Death that they just introduced at the beginning of a film. Like, that wouldn't have really...
Well, they would have to introduce the entire concept of this cosmic entity, which has never been talked about before.
Yeah, and then to connect Thanos to them as they're introducing him, it just would have been a mess. So I'm glad they sort of connected him to the characters that we know instead of connecting him to a Lady Death.
And there were some theories going around too before the movie was released that Hela from Ragnarok was going to end up being Lady Death, and I'm super glad they didn't do that shit, because I just feel like that would have been trying to cram a whole nother arc that genuinely didn't need to be there. So props Marvel Studios for not making that ridiculous decision.
They would have had to explain too much, like how she survived against Surtur and all that other crap, and it didn't happen. I loved Hela as a villain, but she needs to stay where she is, which is firmly dead.
Firmly dead.
But yeah, I mean, there's still the possibility that in the future they could introduce the concept of Mistress Death, maybe even in the next film. I don't think it's going to happen because, as Christian said, his actual motivation and backstory is way more relatable than it's ever been. So yeah, I just thought it really worked here. Really, this was just a really great film. Like I said, not reinventing the wheel or, you know, doing anything too entirely mega thought-provoking, but for what it was one of the greatest comic book movies that I've ever seen. There's never been another movie like it, and really the bar's been raised. And it's funny too, because a lot of people consider this the end of the MCU. Guys, we're just at the halfway point as far as I'm concerned.
Dude, Phase 4, we don't even know what most of that is. Like, this movie's only been out for like, what, 6 days now?
Yeah.
I've seen it 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I'm ready for X-Men. I'm ready for Fantastic Four. I'm ready for all that stuff to be introduced in this franchise.
And I really think that's what Phase 4 is going to be.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like, if they do a next big ensemble picture, I want the villain to be Galactus.
Hell
I
yeah.
want to involve everyone in that. I want to see Galactus towering over everything.
Do you want
and doing crazy
Celestials
shit.
and all that shit?
I want Cosmics.
Yeah.
I want everything. I want them to go full on. We just took drugs and we're going crazy with this shit. Like, I really want that stuff, man.
That's hard to connect with as an audience.
It is hard to connect with.
Because you
know
can't...
It's also hard to put it all in 2.5 hours.
But it's also a comic book movie. Let's have some fun with this and go crazy, you know?
No,
it doesn't all have to be X-Men wearing black leather. You know, let's get Wolverine wearing some yellow spandex. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I refuse that.
All right, well, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We didn't really talk about the post-credit scene, but basically it's teasing the next Captain Marvel movie.
Nick Fury's in it. He
Nick
ends
Fury.
up dying, but while he's dying, he's like, motherfucker.
I remember, like, when you were watching it, like, of course he said that.
I was like, that was the shit was in his contract.
Of course he's got a 1990s
I'm sick of all
pager.
these motherfucking media's falling on my motherfucking head, or what could we do? There's a good space, or there's a good snakes on the plane joke here. I'm sick of all these motherfuckers disappearing on my motherfucking planet.
It's good enough for me.
Bears on a bus.
Bears on a bus.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us for the podcast. Christian, thanks for joining me again. Jordan, thanks for being on. It was great hearing your opinions about this stuff.
Always.
With all the brand new movies that are coming out, we'd love to have you on the show again, especially with Ant-Man coming out soon. But everyone, thank you for listening to today's episode of the Powerful Nerdcast. We know we've been gone for a really long time, but we're trying to retool the show and bring it back for you. If you guys did watch Avengers Infinity War, make sure to sound off with your thoughts in the comments section below. Make sure to, if you have any questions for us, let us know, topic ideas, and make sure to look forward to some more new episodes of the Powerful Nerdcast. We will see you guys next time.
This is the end game.
I forgot, Corey. It's been a while.
I know. We forgot our... You know what? We're out.
We're out.
All right. Peace, guys.
Deuces.